Good morning, everyone. Pat Buckta here, Executive Director of Austin, Texas Musicians, and I am here with our ATXM Votes crew. We've got Scott Strickland and Zach Morgan here for a very special purpose today. We're going to be talking about pandemic unemployment insurance and all the challenges that we're facing right now with these things going on. So, real quick, I'd like to introduce Scott and Zach. Scott, good morning. Zach.
Hey, good morning. How you doing, Pat?
Hey, I'm doing okay. Yeah, thanks for being here. And I think let's just get right into it. Why don't we? And we'll bring in Congressman Lloyd Doggett, who's going to really speak with us this morning about some of the things happening at the federal level. So hopefully we can get some insight as to how this affects our music community. Let's bring in Congressman right now. Good morning,
Pat.
How are you today?
Zach, very wonderful. Delighted to be with you. Unhappy with what's not happening in Washington. Mine's mainly not what's happening there. Eager to visit with you.
It seems like there's a lot of that going around right now. And so we really want to check in with you on some of those things. And you know, it seems like, you know, I know you guys have been working so hard up in Washington to kind of figure out what's going to happen next. And then with Saturday's executive order, that kind of threw a lot more confusion into this whole thing. And I know a lot of people in our music community are really struggling to figure out what that means and how that is going to affect their unemployment benefits in the upcoming months. So why don't we just get into it with you, Congressman, if we can, and just talk about, first of all, what's the status currently of those pandemic unemployment assistance benefits that expired just a few weeks ago?
You know, it's not a good status. And I realize that there are a lot of people out there that are really hurting, that are wondering how they're going to, you know, pay their next bill, keep food on the table, keep shelter for themselves, their family. And I wish I had better news to report, but I can, and I'm going to be very direct about this. Some may call it partisan, but I can tell you, I'm just going to lay the facts out the way they are. I was with our great night shift program in May, just after we passed on May 15th, legislation to extend unemployment assistance through January of next year. We're now 12 weeks from there. Almost all of the time since then, nothing has happened in the Republican Senate. They deliberately waited until after Texas Workforce Commission had sent out the last emergency unemployment check before even putting out their proposal for consideration. They have not negotiated in good faith. I think they saw this as an opportunity to use the desperation of people around the country as a bargaining tool. And so where we are is that there is no relief, and there's no relief in sight. I get people contacting us on a pretty regular basis of, when will my check be there? Am I getting $400? The honest answer is, there's not a check in the mail. There is no check coming this month. We'll be lucky if there's anything that comes next month. And I can tell you a little bit more about the reasons for that. But this all didn't have to happen. We could have had those that unemployment assistance in effect into next year, or negotiated to a shorter period of time. This isn't a matter of 600 or 400 or 300 or whatever. It is a question of whether or not there is some stability and something that people can really count on. And they can't right now. Just a word about this executive action. And the most of the reports in the news said that Trump had signed 4 executive orders. That's not really accurate. He signed 1 executive order that was pretty meaningless and wrote 3 memos to his bureaucracy. One of those memos concerns unemployment benefits. And it's just amazing on so many levels. First, the source of the money that he's relying on is what we rely on for hurricanes and fires and tornadoes and other natural disasters. We are at the beginning of what is supposed to be one of the worst hurricane seasons that we've ever had. But that's the money he wants to use to pay unemployment assistance. Even if we didn't need it for hurricanes or fires, there's not enough money in the fund to carry forward benefits for more than a few weeks. The memo that he wrote originally said he was just going to reduce it from 600 to 400. And I know that wasn't good for many people, but I think, folks said, well, if there's a $400 check I can count on there, I'll find some way to get by. That's not what happened, because his $400 depended on $100 coming in from the states. I haven't seen Greg Abbott or any other governor say, oh, I want in on that program. Here's our $100. Mm-hmm. And in fact, the reaction from governors of both parties all over the country was so negative that yesterday they backed off, not Trump, but his advisors, and said, well, it's only $300. That $300 is extremely uncertain. The other thing that is required because of what they've done here is more guidance coming out of the Department of Labor, not known for its promptness or for its concern for workers. And eventually this would filter down to the Texas Workforce Commission. I know you're going to hear from an expert over there, but Texas Workforce Commission was clearly overwhelmed, underfunded, outdated technology, didn't staff up soon enough with extra people. And it's just had a host of problems. And the last thing we need is to burden them at a time they're catching up with even more uncertainty. And that's all we have from Trump at this point is uncertainty on top of uncertainty. I would say that the main hope is that at some point, and I missed a Grammys in my district day yesterday that I always participate in because of a caucus call about this, at some point, negotiations will resume and maybe some kind of agreement can be reached. But at this point, as of yesterday afternoon, the administration was not willing to put any more resources in for unemployment assistance, nor for anything else, from the post office to our schools to just a host of issues that are at stake here. And so there haven't been, to my knowledge, any negotiations through yesterday. When that negotiation, when something happens, it's then going to take some time to get the wheels going again and get the payments out. The simpler we make it at that point, the simplest thing would be to just restore the $600 for some period of time, even if it's negotiated down in the future, is to get this out and to get it out as promptly as possible. But there's nothing from this law and order president who's ignored the law and is always promoting chaos, but more chaos in this area, to be very frank about it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Congressman. And, I think you bring up a lot of, really big concerns for our music community. And my next question, I think you kind of covered a good bit of it, but let's dig a little deeper. When we have so many in our music community and our gig workers who have been dependent on that $600 these past months. I mean, let's dig a little deeper into what, those benefits ended just a few weeks ago for so many of us. And so as we look over the next few months, I mean, realistically, how long could we really be waiting until we have those benefits come back?
Well, I think it's improbable that anything under the best case scenario, I would say, is mid-September. But the longer this drags on, to the extent that we reshape the $600, the more difficult it is to get that money out in time. If an agreement were reached today, it's unlikely it would be approved in the Congress until next week. And you can see these weeks and these days ticking off while people are wondering, how do I pick up payment? What do I tell the landlord? What do I do about these credit card bills? One other specific that I mentioned about the Trump non-executive order memorandum that relates a lot to people in the gig economy is that he excluded anyone who was making less than $100 a week in regular unemployment. The average benefit in Texas is not the average, but the minimum benefit, big difference, is I think about $69. And so many of the issues that we've dealt with have related to the fact that many people in the gig economy, our musicians, have their earnings on a 1099 form, not on the W-2. And those were being excluded to a large measure in consideration there. I am concerned that we don't have a good solution long-term to the way gig workers are treated in the unemployment system, and that many of those workers who are most in need of help, either because they have extremely low earnings or their earnings are on 1099 forms, that they won't get a dime of relief out of this. Overall, we need to use the experience here to find a new way to deal with the gig economy, which is growing. But on the short term, my message is make plans assuming that there's no check in the mail or deposit electronically, as most people get it, in your account for some time.
Thank you so much, Representative Doggett. I have a few more questions for you. And, I want to say, too, that your office has been so helpful to our music community over these past months. It's really been a benefit to, get this really clear information from yourself and from your staff to help us understand and navigate this stuff that's going on. We had a great question, I think, from one of your staffers that we came up with, and we'd like to ask you, what about the work that you've been doing with us, with Austin, Texas musicians, and the other local musicians and music venues who have been impacted by the pandemic? You've been doing a lot of work for our music community. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit more?
The situation individuals face differs a great deal. There's much commonality, like on the 1099 forms. But I've been a fan of our music industry here for so long. It adds so much joy to life here. We're very proud to be the live music capital. And just as there is concern in other sectors of the economy that small businesses and others will shrivel up and won't be here, I'm concerned about our losing that distinction, losing key venues, which were already a problem. We have tried to work on the venue issue, both with the city and with other legislation. But specifically as it relates to unemployment benefits, one example that I would cite that came as a result of one of my staff members who is in the music business herself. I'm just her day job, Sarah Lavin Jones, participated on, I think, one of the night shift events. Mm-hmm. And we got a call from Johnny and Carly. They are both, one's a drummer, one's a singer. They were having trouble with their unemployment. And when Johnny reached out, we immediately contacted the Workforce Commission, got some help over there. For months, they were unable to play music, but they had been at the same time waiting anxiously for their benefits. And as a result of our getting a good relationship with TWC and their being involved, Carly's finally been approved for all of her back pay, and Johnny's been approved to get weekly benefits. We're still working on trying to get his back pay resolved. So that's the kind of individual that we work with, and we welcome other individuals that are in a tight spot. Clearly, we can't resolve every problem, but sometimes we can be helpful in trying to get this process moving along, not just on unemployment, but we've worked with our great Central Texas Food Bank on issues concerning healthcare, childcare. There are just a host of issues out there. That's why we thought when we passed that bill back in May 15th that it wasn't perfect, but that we won't get our economy fully going again until we get this health crisis resolved. We have a crisis as a result of denial, delay, and ongoing deception that's still going on right now. We can't solve all those things, but we needed to have the funds and the policies. And that's why I hope eventually we will see some kind of agreement reached with Senate Republicans and the Trump administration to address more of these problems.
Definitely. Well, and you bring up a great point here, I think, when we talk about the pandemic and healthcare. And, so many of our musicians, I think, in this community rely on services like HAM, Health Alliance for Austin Musicians, who have seen a big, sort of hit in their funding and their budget this year. And let's talk for a minute about why it's so important that healthcare is a priority for our music community right now.
Well, I think you're going to hear from Ham in the course of this program, but I'm a big fan and have been for years, always try to participate in Ham Day. I think there's a Ham event coming up in the next couple of weeks that I hope more people can join with. For those people who have the day job where they get health insurance, and not nearly enough since we're the state with the most uninsured population of any in the country, but for those who were fortunate to get health insurance with their job and they've lost that health insurance, there is a right within 60 days of losing your health insurance to enroll through the Affordable Care Act. And often, though the policy may not be as comprehensive, to get a no premium or almost no premium policy. We will also, I worked with Ham the last several years on the new enrollment period, and I expect Ham and foundation communities will be working together again. We'll join with them in my role as chair of the health subcommittee in about November to enroll people again. If there was one time you don't want to be without health insurance, it's in the midst of a pandemic. I've just been exploring with one of our local television stations yesterday, people being charged big cost in connection with testing when it should be no cost. But those who contract COVID-19 and are hospitalized can face some really big bills. And you want to be sure you have health insurance for yourself and your family, not just because of the possibility of an accident or some other dread disease, but because we're in the middle of the worst healthcare crisis in this country for a century.
It's absolutely true. Thank you for that. And I know that this year Ham's really going to be focused on outreach to a lot of the underserved communities in our music community. And Austin, Texas Musicians is happy to be partnering with Ham in that respect. So we're going to be thrilled to work with you again in that respect to make sure that all of our musicians have access to that health care that they need. I'm actually a Ham member myself. I had a liver transplant in 2012, so I'm so dependent on that coverage, just really to even get those anti-rejection meds to keep me moving, right? So,
indeed.
So thank you for the work you're doing there. Let's, I know you've got to wrap up here, but let's talk real quick. We have a lot of musicians who probably want to contact your office and talk a little more to your staff about some of these things we've been talking about today. We put up some of those forms of contact here, but really, what's the best form of contact for your office?
Either at this email or by going to my website, which you can put up also, I think, either of those. And I hope when people do that, whether they live physically within the district that's very gerrymandered that I have from Runberg Lane to the south side of San Antonio, that they will sign up to be what we call a subscriber, and that is to get updates periodically on our ongoing struggle with Trump over some of these issues. So we welcome your doing that. I will, if I might, just touch as well on the really important, the great importance of participating. I know you've got other people on your program. But two things. One, our census numbers are really off. We have great underreporting. It focuses on people of color, but also on students. And I want to be sure that everyone that is listening, if you haven't completed your census form, you can do it online. That will keep somebody from knocking at your door. Trump has done everything he can by shortening the period and by all the intimidation to reduce participation, but do that now. It's going to end during September. I believe that our democracy, we talked about health. I think the health of our democracy is imperiled right now. And it's essential that people participate to the fullest. During a pandemic, one of the big issues is, do you risk your health in order to vote? We may be facing, I saw new headlines today that the CDC director was talking about one of the worst falls that our country has experienced. We've got flu season coming. We got other challenges out there. We don't have any more national leadership than we had back in February. And so there is a way to avoid risking your health, and that's voting by mail. Everyone over 65 can do that as a matter of right. Many people under 65 who have a physical condition that they'd be risking their health if they went physically to the polls can vote by mail also. You can go to the vote by mail page on our website for more information about that. Many people who don't consider themselves disabled qualify to vote by mail based on disability with conditions like diabetes, even a variety of conditions that can give rise to a challenge. So I want to encourage everyone who can to vote by mail. This morning, Trump was on Fox indicating that he was opposing some of the funding necessary for the post office because he's concerned about too many ballots arriving by mail. If you apply to vote by mail now, you'll get your ballot, be one of the first voters in late September, early October. You've got basically a month to get that thing back. Even Trump will not be able to block that going back. You'll have registered your vote, however, your party or philosophy, and get it in. I just believe that we can't change many of the laws that are a problem up there without changing the lawmakers. And we need your participation to do that and to save our democracy from all the danger that Trump's march toward tyranny would permit.
Thank you, Congressman. And to that very point, you know, as we talk about voting by mail and making sure that everyone's registered and prepared, I want to bring Scott and Zach back in. Surprise, guys, to, you know, just to reiterate the fact that with our voting committee here, with our ATX and Votes team, we've really got our work cut out for us. So we're really working, looking forward to working with your office even more to make sure that everybody has that opportunity to take advantage of that right that they have to vote safely in the upcoming months. Our last question for you today, Congressman, you know, is really just one, it's more of an emotional one, I think. We would like to just ask you, you know, you've been working so hard, I think, in Washington for our music community. You've dedicated so much your life here in Austin to helping music and arts in every way. I seem to see you at every event, you know, that supports our arts and cultural communities. What would you like to say from your heart to those communities today as we face these next months?
That I understand the great challenge you face. I wish there were more we could do. You know, we're able to help some individuals. We're able to push hard for healthcare and other issues, but I understand the problem that's out there. There are many of us in Congress who recognize that and are pushing. We need reinforcements. You can help. In the meantime, we will do anything that is reasonable to help people that face problems out there right now. Consider our office to be a resource. I look forward to the day as someone who has no musical talent to be back enjoying this where we are face to face, mask to mask, whatever, so that we can get the talent and the joy that this industry is all about going again. That day will come. We've got to persevere, get the changes we need to get our country back on the right track and get this pandemic under control. Thanks so much for the message you're getting out there. And thanks so much also for the messages of encouragement that we've gotten from people across Central Texas.
Thank you so much, Congressman. We truly appreciate everything you've done for our music community. And we look forward to working with your office even more in these very important upcoming months. And on that same tip, you know, I'd like to bring in Melissa Chapa, who's the legal counsel with Texas Workforce Commission now. Congressman, we appreciate everything that you've.
Thank you. I'm going to head out to another event, but I want to say thanks to Melissa and her coworkers over at TWC. There have been a lot of issues over there that I've had, but they're not the result of lack of concern from employees over there to try to help our neighbors get through this terrible pandemic. So my staff will be listening in and getting the latest tips from you, and it's good to have an expert on these issues commenting today. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressman Doggett. We'll see you very soon, okay? And let's give a big ATX and Votes welcome to Melissa Chapa. You know, I think I think all of us here know Valissa pretty well at this point because she's been helping us directly in so many ways, over these last few months. Valissa, why don't you tell us a little bit before we get into the questions, kind of what your role is there with TWC and what you've been doing a little bit?
Sure. So I am one of 4 attorneys in the Office of the Commissioner that represents employers at the Texas Workforce Commission. So the attorneys in my office, we typically handle unemployment claims and appeals at the highest level of appeal, and our role is typically centered more towards what an attorney function within the agency. But our office also has a lot of outreach that we do to employers. We have a handbook that's currently titled especially for Texas employers that gives employers information on Texas and federal laws, breaking it down to a language that's a lot easier to understand. We have an employer hotline also where employers can call us 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. And the number I think is streaming below, and 1-800-832-9394, and you push option 4. So that's an employer hotline where the attorneys in this office, we don't give legal advice, but we give information and guidance. And of course, we advocate for employers. So that's what I do within my role at the agency. We work towards giving employers information and guidance, and we advocate for them, specifically for sole proprietors and gig workers and people who are their own boss. They are in a very unique situation, sort of in a gray zone, where in many cases they're an employer, and in many cases they are an employee or a claimant who's seeking benefits. So the lines are a little bit blurred when it comes to the folks, the audience on this webinar. So we may not be able to answer every question as from a claimant standpoint, but regardless, we are here to get people to the right office in case we cannot answer their question or solve their problem individually.
I appreciate that, Valissa, and I also just want to reiterate here that I appreciate you giving your outline of what you do, but our experience has been that you do way more than what you just described for our music community, and we're so thankful to you and to your office for that. Let's get into the questions here. Why don't we start to talk a little bit about the status of claim activity at TWC? I know you guys have been working overtime on all the claims coming in. Are those claim numbers still on the rise at this point?
Claim numbers still remain elevated. Yes, it's still very, very busy, very active at TWC. I think in the last about 5 months, TWC has processed about 6 years worth of claims. So we're averaging about a year's worth of work every month. We've added additional call centers, staff members, people like myself are going above and beyond the usual duties to try to help everyone. So it's still very much active. And when you look at it from a Texas perspective, I suppose it makes sense. Texas is the 2nd largest economy in the United States, second only to California. And I believe at this point, we were ranked at either 9th or 10th as the largest economy in the world out of 195 plus countries. So from that perspective, Texas is huge, and we know that. So with all of the amount of folks within the state seeking benefits, it's just still a high number, and we're still seeing a lot of active claims. That's why TWC is still operating 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And there is still no work search requirement. I know that's might be some concern for some folks because there was a period of time where that was going to be implemented and then it didn't go through. So as of this time, there is still no work search requirement, but the numbers are still elevated. So it's still a busy time over here.
Yeah, absolutely, Valissa. Thank you. It sounds like you guys have just been underwater over there, and I know y'all are working overtime. To that point, what is TWC's current plan in light of the new executive order that was signed by Trump regarding that additional $400 a week in unemployment benefits? I know that just came down Saturday, and I can't imagine how your office is dealing with this right now. Can you describe that a little bit? And Valissa, I think you may have just frozen up there. Let's see. we'll see if we can bring Velissa back in just a second. Shoot. Yeah, let's remove Velissa just for a moment, and then she can pop back in with us in just a moment. We've got Scott and Zach here. Scott, what do you guys think about this stuff happening right now on the executive level, or with that executive order level?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead, Zach.
I thought it was really helpful to hear Congressman Doggett's perspective on that. As someone who is directly affected by it, I got excited at first when I heard that this was happening, and then the more I read into it, and then I talked to Scott and you about it, I'm like, okay, I see. It's not really what it looks like. You see a headline that says executive order approves $400. You get excited and you look into the details and you're like, okay, this is nothing like what it looks like. It's like Doggett said, it's a lot of politics. It's a lot of stuff that wasn't discussed with the states, and it's not doable from the state's perspective and from TWC's perspective. And that's not just with Texas, it's everywhere. So it's unfortunately not what the headline made it out to be. And so we just got to keep trucking and pushing on the right people and hitching our wagon to Congressman Doggett and people like that who are really fighting for what it should be, not a political headline that's going to boost your ratings. And that's what it seems like it was in the first place. So.
Yeah, absolutely, Zach. And Velissa, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I lost connection. I'm back
Totally
on my
okay.
cell phone.
No, totally fine.
I can pick right up.
So, question here: what is the TWC doing to combat or fight the Trump's executive order with the states having to come up with the extra $100?
So it's really more of a question of how do we serve Texas and how do we impose and implement the rule? So that's really the focus from TWC. I kind of look at it like a relay race where we're just waiting for the baton, and we're trying to get as ready as we can be. So when we get the baton, we can go. So what we're trying to do is figure out how we can work with the language within the order. So to that point, such an executive order, an order like this is unprecedented. So we are waiting on guidance from the Department of Labor to figure out how we can implement this within the constraints of existing state and federal law. That's really where it is right now. That's what the focus is. So just a little bit about that. I know that one unique piece of this particular order is that there's a minimum $100 week of benefits that one needs to be entitled to receive this additional money. And under current TWC rules, a minimum of $69 a week is what someone can be entitled to. So what that means for the TWC system, we don't have to create a whole new system, which is the good news, because this would be a flat number. I think it would be more complex and require a lot more work from IT to implement something that has that's based on like a weekly benefit amount or a percentage. So because it would be, a flat fee right now, that TWC doesn't need to create a whole new disbursement system. Instead, what they're just going to do is reprogram the current system to accommodate the new amount of the 400 or 300 or whatever it might be. So that's the good news there, is that when the pandemic first started, TWC didn't have a system to work with the pandemic unemployment assistance and all of that under the CARES Act, because it was a first time thing. So all of the major work has already been done. So now it would just sort of be updating the system, and it would be a lot less time consuming to just do it as a flat amount. So that's the good news there. We don't have to start over from scratch. But because of the way the order, some of the language of it, we just need to make sure that we are imposing it correctly and that the system can handle what's been done. I also do know that TWC is not able to pay that additional 25% of the 400 per week at this time because the UI trust fund has been depleted. And even if it weren't depleted, the Department of Labor indicated that the state may not use the UI trust fund to provide the $100 match. And my understanding is that recent developments have shown that the $100 has now been removed. So that roadblock may not be there anymore as well. At this time, I've not been informed if Governor Abbott will be requesting anything additional there. So we're kind of in a waiting pattern until we get more information from the Department of Labor as far as exactly how we're going to move forward and implement this. But the good news is we're doing everything that we can to be as ready as possible so that when that time comes and we get the baton, we can go and run with it.
So essentially,
Gotcha.
when we're talking about that $400 a month and that, Trump's, I guess, plan to take 25% of that from the state's budget, that $100, from what you're saying here, just doesn't exist.
Well, I do think the most recent guidance indicates that it would now be 300, or basically that requirement has been possibly removed. So that's
Sure.
a little bit easier, but then of course the difference would be 300 instead of 400. So I really don't know what the guidance is going to be. Just from reading the order and looking at the language, that of course we all have ideas. But until we get more from the Department of Labor, we just really don't know what that's going to mean. And of course, part of the order says that if Congress does pass something, that would be the way to go. So there could be shifts again in the near future, just depending on what the action is taken on the congressional level to approach these additional monies.
Yeah, absolutely. Valissa, I believe I'm going to ask the next question, and then I think Scott and Zach can ask the other two. Why don't we talk about real quickly, and this is a question I think that keeps coming up with so many of our musicians and gig workers who do a couple of different things, right? They may make a little income over here and then some more income over here. Let's explain what happens if someone receives W-2 and 1099 income, but the 1099 income may be much greater than the W-2. Is that 1099 income disregarded when calculating those weekly benefit payments? I mean, how's that all going to work in the future?
Right. So the interesting piece is that typically if you're a sole proprietor or a gig worker, you don't get any unemployment because it's usually reserved for folks who have W-2 wages in the state of Texas. So with this, with the CARES Act that passed in the pandemic unemployment assistance, you can now get the minimum $207 a week through that. So the way that the system is currently working is that first, if you qualify for regular unemployment, based on W-2. So if you have enough wages to qualify for a regular W-2 wage unemployment claim, that's how your claim is going to be processed. Only if you don't have enough W-2 wages to have that Texas claim would you then have your name automatically flagged for pandemic unemployment assistance, or PUA. So a lot of folks who have the majority of their income, maybe through a gig job, through musician work and artist work, then if you have a smaller side job, I guess the bottom line is that if you have the W-2 wages and qualify for a state claim, then it will be processed that way. And then as far as earnings reported, the earnings that are reported for each individual, it does request both W-2 and 1099 earnings in terms of reporting the earnings every 2 weeks for TWC to recalculate. So that's sort of the reality that we're in. That's how the system currently functions.
Definitely. Thank you, Valissa. And, again, I just want to reiterate that your office and you specifically have been so helpful to our music community over these last months. And we so appreciate everything you guys have done. What is the best way that members can contact your office if they have questions about those claims? I know the primary phone lines always seem to be a little busy, and that's natural with, as you described, the amount of claims coming in. But we've been putting up a few forms of contact. Maybe you can underline the best way to get in touch with your office.
Sure. So the office that I'm in, the Office of the Commissioner Representing Employers, you can email us or you can call us. There's 2 phone numbers you can try. One of them is scrolling on the bottom, 800-832-9394. The alternate number is 512-463-2826. We answer both lines. So again, 512-463-2826. You can also email us, which a lot of folks are doing, and we're happy to look at. The email address is employerinfo@twc.state.tx.us. Again, employerinfo@twc.state.tx.us. We answer every single email that we get. We do not mind. We don't take ourselves seriously, but we take our jobs very seriously. We know people need help. So if you don't know where to start, you can email employer info. And if we can't help you personally, we will get you to the right department who can. We will respond to you and let you know that it's been done. We want to make sure that you know that we've heard you and we are trying to get your issue resolved. So that's a really good starting point to reach our office. Again, I can't emphasize enough how seriously we take this role. We are really here to serve. We want you to email us if you need help. We want to figure out how we can help you. And I think Scott and Zach actually emailed me as well, maybe at least once. And so hopefully.
I emailed you just yesterday.
Yes. So, and I think I responded, right?
Yeah, I think so.
We're not saying anything just to half mean it. We 100% mean what we say. This is what we're here to do. It's crunch time. So again, email us. Don't be afraid to do that. We are the employer commissioner's office, like I said, so we have to be very careful within our role and not go over into the land of the labor commissioner's office. But again, we can get to the right people and we can help you as much as we can. We're happy to do it.
Yes. And
Liz, thank you very much.
I know that when I first started this out and was trying to navigate the unemployment benefits and stuff, you were so helpful about that and literally a lifesaver. Seriously. So thank you very, very, very much. I got one more question.
Sure.
What does the TWC want to say about our music community and gig workers as we go forward during these next few months?
Really good question. So I can't speak for TWC as a whole. I can only speak to, the office that I work in, Commissioner Aaron Demerson, the Office of the Commissioner Representing Employers. I can speak for us. Our office, we work so hard to try to make sure that people know that not only do we care, but we are here to help. So I don't want anyone to hesitate when it comes to contacting us for help. That's number one. We know there's tons of phone numbers you can call and they're not responding. Email us, call us. We are very serious about that. We don't want anyone to lose faith. We know this is a really difficult time, and everyone, I think, in my office in particular, is trying really hard to figure out how we can help people in any way that we can. So we don't want you to forget about us. We want you to contact us if you need the help. Please don't lose faith. I also wanted to throw out there that there's other options other than unemployment. I've done over 50 webinars to date with different employers and organizations across Texas, and I have learned about grant monies available in different areas of the state, different programs. So for those of you in the Austin area, here's what I think you can also do. Contact your local Workforce Solutions office. It's Workforce Solutions Capital Area. That's the name of yours. So we have TWC, the agency hub. And then because Texas is so large, we have what's known as Workforce Solutions offices sprinkled around the state. I think there's about 28 at this point. And each area of Texas has different needs, has different grants, has different opportunities. So every Workforce Solutions office in the state is supposed to have information on the local area and what's available. So at this point, I would recommend that folks go out to those Workforce Solutions offices, call them, go to their website. Again, for Austin, it's Workforce Solutions Capital Area. and see if they have any kind of grants or other forms of financial assistance that you could be eligible to receive, because I do know there is some money out there. And I think part of the problem is folks don't know where to go to hear about what all of these opportunities are. And I think Workforce Solutions is a way to start. So I would say that. And finally, contact your elected officials. If you have concerns about things, make sure that your voice is heard and get out there. And sort of mirroring what Representative Doggett stated, we also wish that we could do more. So we just want you to know that if you respond or get in touch with us, we will do what we can to try to help you as fast as we can.
Thank you so much,
I
Melissa.
vouch for that.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate that. I know I've personally sent several folks to your office as well as Congressman Doggett's office, and with 100% success rate. And it's just so nice. And there's so much uncertainty right now. Just to have a human on the other side that not only can get something done, but also empathizes for the situation. And so thank you and your team and everyone that's been able to do that and help people like me and my friends and everyone like us out. It's really, like Scott said, it's like a life-saving thing, because we're in this total period of uncertainty, and to have people like you working for us is really, really helpful. So we really appreciate it.
Of course, whatever we can do. And like I usually say, we were here long before the pandemic, and we will be here long after. So don't forget about us. If years down the road, if you need more guidance, things happen, we will still be there to serve you and help you. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Melissa. Appreciate that. Yeah. Okay. So, I did not think that this was going to be here as long as it was. I just, there was no telling about this. Now that we're here, it's like, wow, like what are we doing? Like, what is going on?
I remember specifically in April when I first was approved for unemployment, and it said it's going through July. I'm like, perfect. I'll be back to work mid-June or something, and here we are mid-August, and it's like, there's no end in sight for going back to work as normal. And so it's helpful to have these people that we know we can lean on and that know what's going on, that are fighting the fight for us. And, it's just nice to be able to do that, because I know at the beginning nobody knew what to do. I was calling the office 100 times a day, and I know I'm not the only one that was doing that. People were doing it for weeks at a time. And there was just nothing at the beginning. So, and I understand from their perspective, they have so much work to do at the beginning. And she said they were doing a year's worth of work every month, which is just insane.
Yeah.
So it's great that we are where we are now as far as communication with them and all that. And I think that we're going to have a really strong relationship with them going forward. And we have a lot of work to do for sure. But it's nice to know that we have a team of people at the state level and at the national level who are ready to fight with us and who empathize with us and feel us on that, and are not just giving us lip service or trying to boost their ratings or whatever by saying this or saying that or doing this or doing that. So it's just, it's encouraging, which is something that wasn't happening several months ago.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we have a word from our sponsor. Do we have any? No, we don't have any sponsors. Not yet. No sponsors yet, right? I don't know. We're a 501c4. Can we have one? I don't know. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Hey, everybody. It's Nakia. I just wanted to take a minute to pop on and thank each and every one of the folks involved in this broadcast today, especially our musicians advisory panel members who put this together, our ATXM Pro members who are participating, and of course, Representative Lloyd Doggett and your staff. We just are so grateful for all that you do for Austin music and really music in general. You're always a champion for the people, and we really appreciate the work that you're doing. Folks at home who are watching, this is a great example of what it means to show up and speak up, and we got to do more of that. If you want to stay in the loop about finding out what's going on with these types of situations, please make sure to head over to atxmmusicians.org and fill out an application to become an ATXM Pro member if you're a musician, or just sign up on our newsletter if you're just looking for information. Either way, we're so grateful that you're watching today, and we hope that you learned something and that what we're doing here today makes a difference. Thanks so much.
I can't believe
Love
you
that
did
guy.
that one take. Seriously, it would have taken me all day to do that.
He's a pro.
He is definitely a pro. Thank you, Nikia, for that message. Okay, we're gonna bring in our All-Stars panel now. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey,
What is
who
up?
was that spokesmodel you had? That guy was great.
All right, Kevin Russell, Jeff Plankerhorn, Carolyn Wonderland, Susanna Schafel, Shaka. Is Shaka here?
He's probably out
Okay.
saving the world.
Oh,
Yeah, probably.
Right.
Yeah. John,
He's doing so much.
Well, thanks everybody for joining in.
appreciate that.
Thanks for
Yeah.
having us.
Okay,
Good to be here.
so how is everyone doing with all this? Just tell me. Let's go around the room. Just tell me how you've been coping with this.
Ladies first.
All right. Well, I happen to be a couple things. I'm very, very grateful to have a part-time day job being a radio DJ at Sun Radio right now. So that has given me not only something to kind of, fulfill my days with, other than taking care of two little ones. But it's also, a small paycheck that I still make most of my income off of music and gigging, but it didn't leave me so much, just hanging completely dry. So very grateful that I happened to take that random part-time gig a couple years ago. And other than that, I'm going crazy, running a household of kids, young adults. I've got them all. I have like a 1-year-old, a 5-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 20-year-old in my house right now. So it's a full house over here, but it's, we're managing. I'm also very lucky because I have a partner, Paul, who has a business that's doing okay. They're surviving and somehow managing to thrive in this economy, doing what he can. So, he's a huge, obviously, resource and help for me. If I was just completely alone, I feel so much for all my solo musician friends right now who, they're really having to figure out how to make this work. I have a little bit of a safety net with my partner, but it's tough times. I know everybody is. I give y'all much love for all the work y'all are putting in and doing. So anyway, take it away, Carolyn. They said ladies first. So
Oh dear. For myself, I've just been trying to figure out how to make use of the time and learn how to perhaps do something technological with music, but mostly trying to figure out how to still maintain connections with people when you can't see them. I'm a big old hugger at all times, so it's very odd to see someone and not be able to do that. I find working with charity has been helping a great deal. Our group Home Austin has got a whole lot of applications. So for emergency grants, and we've been doing them for Austin area musicians 55 and over who are needing help with rent and mortgages and things like that. So it's a one-time $500 grant, but just trying to figure out how to keep that sustainable and looking forward to being able to play music again with real people.
right, yeah.
Who's next? Looks like
Well, let's keep going around. I wanted, speaking of Sun Radio, just a quick shout out for the grant program that they were doing. I know a lot of people that got that, myself
awesome.
included. It's just so cool to see everyone in all different organizations, and from anyone that can help, they're trying to help where they can. And so, big shout
Absolutely.
out to
Yeah.
Sun Radio. That was really great.
Our Austin community is pretty fabulous in that sense. So yeah.
Kevin, what's going on with you?
Oh man, I'm just trying to adapt like everybody else I know out there, all the musicians, and I am inspired by what I see all my friends doing. Like Scott, for instance. Scott's mentored me on some trying to help me with video editing. You know, I was never a video guy. Now I'm suddenly a video editor.
We're all going to be a million things after this.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, we're learning new skills and new technologies, and as best we can. And it's been a hard few months in that regard, but luckily I'm also in a pretty good financial position, so I'm trying to help those around me. You know, my band members. I've been able to take care of them for a few months while they got the unemployment together. I mean, that's a challenge for independent people of all kinds. We're not generally on the unemployment system. We don't know how it works, a lot of us. So dealing with bureaucracies, and that's a new thing for independent folks like me and my friends, you know. But it's most. I mean, Melissa, I mean, I didn't know we had such a great resource there. It's good to know her.
Yeah, really.
It's really helped. Sounds like she's helped a lot of people. So I might be asking her a few questions too later. But yeah,
she really is a great resource.
Yeah, just trying to reinvent myself yet again. It's a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Even shinier than before.
Yes.
Shinier than before. That's got to be your next album.
Cut if that makes it
Ribs, forehead, cheeks.
John, what's been going on with you, brother?
Well, I was on a plane back from Dubai with a coughing person the day after they had their first COVID check into a diagnosis at a hospital, and then I landed, and that was like, it was actually the beginning of February. Did a few more gigs, headlined a festival up in Colorado, and that was like March 9th, and we were all rolling into South by Whoops, and then everything stopped, and so mostly, you know, I've been figuring out exactly where to stash all my clutter so that it doesn't show up when I'm on interviews like this. Also discovered, you know, they always tell you not to wear shirts with tight patterns, and if I move back and forth, you might see this flashing at you. But you know, like I also have this natural tendency to problem solve, and I saw everybody going into just, you know, performing for cameras or for phones and trying to just get out in front of people. And when I saw Paul Simon show up in front of a beige wall with somebody just holding a camera, I was like, oof, okay, the days of bad production are quickly going to be over. And I kept looking at that 18-month projection for like several waves, and I thought, man, and I'm lucky enough that I had, you know, 6 cameras for shooting concerts that I'd collected over the years and learned cinematography and all that stuff. So I dove into live switching and turning myself into a television studio, and you can see here the camera slider and some other stuff up here, but this is my venue for the next, you know, till this thing is over. And
that's awesome.
And I think that's such a common story going on right now. Well, not quite to the level that you have it right now. I wish I had a 6-camera situation, but it's the story of what's going on right now.
Kind of, you know, I'm lucky in that, like several people on this panel, you know, we're probably doing okay from the gigs we had, from some of the other deals we have around music, and quite honestly, with I qualified for unemployment, much to my surprise. If I could raise my eyebrows very much, I would. But yeah, I basically have taken that economic stimulus, for lack of a better term, and invested it in the extra gear that I'm going to need moving forward, so that once we kind of get to the end of this straggly, sputtering, what in the world is going to happen with all the politics around people's incomes.
Right.
You know, I had a really horrible personal performance the other day, but I actually finally got all of the tech to work, and so I felt like, oh, I looked sweaty, I sounded awful, but I had, like, you know, all the flying graphics and the multiple cameras and
smoke and mirrors.
Okay, yeah, smoke and mirrors.
Everyone
My
was
smoke and
distracted.
mirrors I'm nailing the smoke and mirrors.
If you can get special effects, you don't even have to sound good. You know,
I'm actually going to practice a little bit before the next show, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's just pop star status.
Yeah,
Right.
That's all you.
Right.
Uh-huh.
But other than that, I mean,
Jeff, we were
literally
talking
just like,
about the big lie.
Oh yeah,
Earlier.
the big lie, absolutely. I'm my wife put it really well. She's not a musician. She's a gardener, and thankfully, I hate this joke, but people use it. I'm on wife support.
oh no.
And that means I'm gonna be okay. Or wife insurance was the other one. You know what I mean? Because she's got a gig that she can do socially distant, and
Right.
a lot of people don't know that right now I'm in Canada. My wife is Canadian, so if you've got any questions about how that works, I'll let you know.
Can
But
you sneak me across? No.
I can't work here. Okay, so I can't work here because I don't have my permanent
Right.
residence yet, and I can't get back to work. Okay, so but what my wife said that was really cool was she said that the musicians were showing resilience and how everybody was jumping on, and she's like, I just can't believe how anybody just didn't even take a beat. They just went, okay, that's what we're doing now. And I think for those of us that, make a living as a musician, I think that's something to kind of be proud of, and that's inspiring for other people. It's definitely inspiring for the people that listen to us, because it helps us stay connected with them. From restarting Zoom lessons to teach people to I demo songs for songwriters. Like they'll just call me and say, hey, I'll give you a few bucks if you play this and try and make something out of it, whether I'm using Logic or Pro Tools. There's like these really cool happy hour concerts that we've done to try and learn how to, for like businesses that are going to have Zoom meetings and stuff. So many different things where we've just said, okay, well, if this is what we got to do, this is what we got to do, because we still all pretty much, the one thing across the board I've seen is that most people still feel really lucky that we do music for a living. And the people that I'm the most worried about, I was really, really helpful with I was really, really helped with the unemployment thing when we were making the transition and we were on our way here and we didn't know what was going to happen because Donine wasn't working and neither was I. Now I'm not taking the unemployment because I'm working my butt off, okay? And I worry about the side people and I see a lot of front people, quote unquote, for lack of a better term, doing stuff to help out their cats. And man, that means a lot. I know it means a lot to them. I know it means a lot to them personally. The people who do merch, the people who do the web stuff, somewhere in there was a question like, what are your publicists saying about what you should do right now? Publicist? We can't pay a publicist right now.
They don't have any work to do. Yeah.
They don't have any idea either.
Let me see.
And so, they say, well, what has happened? What's changed in your career? I lost my booking agent. And I can't blame the agency. I lost my booking agent really, really fast after COVID started, and I had finally gotten like the one that I wanted. But I can't blame them.
Why did that happen? I don't understand why.
Can't they just put it on hold?
Yeah, and that wasn't the decision that was made. The decision I think that the booking agent that I had was like, this is not going to be a job for me for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
And so if I can't make any money at this, I'm going to have to dump my whole roster and go look for work elsewhere.
Yeah.
And it stinks because I had finally found one that I loved, who was kicking butt for me. But
So sorry, Jeff.
That's okay because, number one, like I said, if you want to know about what's going on in Canada, I'll let you know. I wish I could benefit from it. But with a functioning healthcare system for everyone, I see venues that are being helped by the system that's not helping. That's not helping in Austin as much as it could. And for the people who say, "How are we going to pay for it?" You're full of beans. You just are because the money is there.
The money is there.
Don't tell me with Bezos
So much money is there.
$13 billion in a day that you don't have the money to pay for this stuff. And that means the gig economy people too. But I've already, blabbed enough. But I thought it was really wonderful that my wife said that, because she doesn't hand out compliments very much, especially about music and musicians, as much as she's a huge fan. She's seen behind the curtain. She knows what we're really all like. Okay? And that we're nerds and that we're just people and all that stuff. And I just ruined it for her. But she did say that she thought it was pretty amazing how resilient we've all been.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really like that you touched on the sidemen. I think a lot of
Yes.
I don't know any of you personally, and I think part of that reason is because I'm a sideman. I'm a full-time sideman. I play 200 gigs a year with 30 different bands, and it's a weird time. I don't play solo gigs. In this time, I've started playing solo piano from home gigs, just because I got to do something. You know?
Yeah.
And there's so many people like me who can't even do that for whatever reason. I mean, maybe you're in a horn section that's gigging 200 times a year, but you're not going to sit at home and do a solo trumpet show, you know?
See clarinets.
Well, you could.
Hey, I would pay. I would throw them some tip money.
Yeah. So it's a crazy time, and I think, you know, there's groups of people who are still thriving. Sometimes some even more than before, because they're able to play 4 gigs in a day virtually. And then there's some people who have built their whole career around being a sideman or doing things that just aren't happening right now. So it's just such this wide range. Like, it's not like every musician is having the same experience. There's a lot of different stuff going on for different people. And it's cool to see people who are on one side of it acknowledge the other side of it and understand that it's a lot of stuff, different things going on, and people are experiencing a lot of different emotions and financial situations and all that stuff. And yeah, it's just great to hear stories of band leaders taking care of their people, from a huge pop, you know, nationally touring level to local people. And so it's really cool to hear that. And it just shows how strong the music community is. That's one thing that's been very apparent in this, is people are stepping up and doing whatever they can to help their team out, other people's teams out, and just get the information out, doing stuff like this. It's just so cool. So yeah, just thank you guys for acknowledging that and being a part of that. And it's just really cool to watch from my perspective and from everyone else's too, I think.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be where we are without the band. Man.
Yeah. I miss playing with my band so much. Crazy.
Right.
God, other musicians, you know, it's just.
Thank you guys.
How about a drummer? I want a
I know.
drummer.
I stopped doing my live stream for a while because I was just so bored. I'm like, I want a freaking drummer. Yeah.
What can
It is
you
boring.
possibly listen to me do again?
It's kind of boring.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that, you know, just psychologically,
like I'm liking
and
it.
kind of jumping on board with the Sims Foundation, because there's so many of us, I think, that are going to, you know, us being everybody in the community, not just like folks who have been fortunate enough to make a decent living at it.
Right.
But there's so much insecurity, and I can't really identify with you know, with how it would feel to not be able to just, oh wow, lucky thing I have $10,000 in camera gear, you know, like that's
Right.
that's not everybody's position, and I've been feeling really, really badly about that, because I like to be a problem solver, and I don't have an answer for that one.
Yeah. I mean, I know personally I've spent thousands of dollars in gear since the pandemic because I have to. That's the only way I could start making money is if I put this big investment on stuff that I never needed before. Right. I didn't need a really nice laptop or cameras or an interface or any of that stuff.
Yeah, you're always out in the venues. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so there's so much of that. And there's some people that just don't, like you're saying, don't have the opportunity to do that. They have to use all this money to pay their bills. And I was fortunate enough to be in a situation where I could make that investment and do that and start regenerating money from home. But yeah, there's so many people that don't have that opportunity.
Well, I just want to say too that as far as the sidemen are concerned, I know some really, really, really incredible, notable names that might feel weird if I mention, but they're out like painting houses right now in the 100-degree heat.
Yep.
Okay. And like, if we are truly an Austin music community that looks out for each other, you know, I don't want to say there's anything not respectable about painting houses. I'm definitely not saying that. I'm just saying that, you know, someone who's spent their whole life playing music and making our town what it is, you know, deserves that help.
Yeah. Agreed.
Absolutely. Guys, let me ask you all a question, and I think you know, John hit on it just a moment ago, but you know, with all the stuff that we're facing right now, you know, and all the uncertainty, I mean, how is everybody prioritizing wellness and mental health? Not just, you know, for yourselves, but as band leaders, so many of you in here lead bands. I mean, how are you taking care of your people? I think in that way as well.
That's a good question. Some things I'm doing right. I'm definitely taking better care of myself, and we're communicating with each other. With my band, I've noticed that a lot of parents, we've noticed on some boards that some parents are communicating. They're using a chart. Y'all may have seen this, like a 0 to 5 risk level or based on your behavior, your lifestyle during COVID. And so they're trying to match with other families whose kids are about the same risk level, things like that. And they're looking for tutors, educational things, people that they could actually hire and be safe about it. So I thought maybe I could use that with my band. And what I found out was I think my risk level is higher than most of my band. So I was like, well,
dang. You guys have fun together. I'll just sit back and watch.
I've been doing a lot of outdoor physically distanced house concerts. That's where I'm focusing a lot of my live playing on those kind of things. And that's becoming more common. People are starting to get more comfortable with that if you do it right. And I have a long list of things I ask for of anybody that's going to book me, and a certain cap of people and spacing, and don't talk to me, don't touch me,
don't even look at me.
Don't even look at me. We're all like Prince now.
Don't
look at
I think
me.
you've seen quite enough of that.
So it's like normal.
But unfortunately, I'm drinking more. I have to admit that I really am. I think a lot of people are. And I've thought, man, maybe I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be drinking so much, but I haven't dealt with that issue yet. It's starting to dawn on me now. Like, okay, because I didn't drink a whole lot before. I would have drinks occasionally, but I can't just run to Cosmic and get a mezcal margarita anymore. So I have to learn to make my own.
You can, but you get them to go. I'll come drop one off, Shiny. Don't worry. I'll come drop
I gotta say, I'm
boozy
missing out on
coffees.
the drink tickets portion of everything. Paying for my own alcohol at home has really started to add up.
Yeah, right. I know.
Got a lot of great cocktails and stuff playing gigs.
Did you see that meme that was floating around at the beginning of this whole thing, where it was like the musician goes to collect their unemployment, and the ladies behind the desk goes, "Okay, great, you're a musician. Here's 2 drink tickets." Like that was like for their unemployment collection or whatever. So sad but true.
Good luck finding a bar that survives.
Yeah. God, yeah. I know Paul's been so lucky with Cosmic because it's basically outdoors. That's the only reason that he's been able to. He was just set up well, with no pandemic in mind, but just happened to have all this outdoor space. But I feel so much for the venues and the bars and everyone who's just limited to that indoor space. That's so tough right now. So but yeah, I'm drinking more too, Shiny. When you're running a household and trying to figure out what is going on in the world, it's a little tricky. I don't think I have a problem. I'm not there yet, but definitely every night ends with a little wine or tequila or something. So take the edge off.
Yeah.
Well, as a member of the sober community and one of those weirdos, I can say meditation up, but unfortunately food up as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Big time. Like that's the only drug I have left, basically. And so since I can't do any of the other ones, then it's just and then exercise. But it's strange too, because I don't know about you guys, but this has been a time for massive if I'm stuck, then I have no excuse not to do a free write every day where I get up and write, and I don't have an excuse to not try meditation for the first time and really stick with it. But I don't have an excuse about exercise, and I'm still not doing that.
Same.
It just it's just like I'm picking up my guitar because it's fun.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, when was
Yeah.
the last time I did that? You know, we work pretty hard to try and keep these careers going and stuff. But
Yeah.
again, I just kind of go, boo hoo, what a nice little, you know, first world problem for me to have when a lot of people are hurting out there.
Yeah.
So as much time as I can devote towards looking out for other people, you know, for whether it's looking out for side people or looking out for anybody, that's going to make me feel more connected, because, you know, I can't do the gospel brunch anymore, and I can't work for the food bank anymore, and I can't do this kind of stuff. So I have to do it online, or I have to find some way.
Yeah.
You
Definitely.
know?
Definitely.
So.
Yeah.
Well,
You know,
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, please.
I was just going to say, I stopped doing my live streams for a while because I just got so crazy busy with motherhood and trying to figure out what's going on with my kids' school and this and that, and very distracted with just life, family life. But I want to start doing them again, if anything, because I was basically, I realized financially, I was using a lot of that money to pay for like charity things and to donate to other musicians.
Right.
I would just basically keep my Venmo account and PayPal. I would never transfer the money into my bank account. It was kind of like, that was like my donation money. And I'm like, oh crap, I can't donate any money right now. I need to start my live streams again. They've become almost a source of charity to give back. You know, it's almost like that's my little savings account to give back. And I really enjoyed doing that. And so I'm going to start up again, because I'm like, man, I feel guilty when, or just, you know, not great when I'm not able to give back into, you know, the community. So.
Man, I totally feel you on that. And it was the
Yeah.
same. That was the only way I could figure I was going to pay my band anything for
Exactly.
the first few months. And everyone had different results trying to get on TWC to begin with. The 1 to 3 months, $207 to $600, to 2 of us being told by Texas, just, you know, basically buzz off. You had most of your money came out of state. So good luck with them for the next 2 months.
Yeah.
So, and I'm with you. I got a little burned out trying to not repeat songs, got up to 50 songs, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm about done with myself as a boring ass solo artist.
I know, right?
But
Try new word.
but thank you for the encouragement, because I do want to get back, and that is where I have the money that I can donate. That's it.
Totally. And don't worry about repeating songs. I've done the same thing, and I'm like, you know what? The fans kind of just want to show up and see you. They just want to experience you and your
connection,
your vibrant personality, and and it doesn't matter, you know. It's like, they would kill to see you solo all day long, you know. It's like, So anyway, I know I do the same thing though. It's
the live element is a huge thing. Like, I realize people want to see you fuck up sometimes.
Totally. They love it.
I can provide.
People love it when my
only
kid
in
crashes
Austin.
my live
Only
stream.
in Austin. Only in
Yeah.
Austin do people really, really like that. But if you've got like 3 frontline workers that count on your show every week, and you know about it, you're gonna do that show regardless of how much money.
Yeah.
Totally.
Because
Totally.
they are in there. And like, before we get off, because I know you have other people to say, I just want to say, become a pollster, because you can actually get paid for that, and we need pollsters really, really bad as far as the voting is concerned. And if you're young and healthy, that is a thing that they actually pay for. And you know, I really, really, really want to thank everybody for letting me be a part of this. I can't wait to hear some more voices. I'm gonna stay on and bow out for a while. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you guys so much for being here today. You know, I think everything you guys have said today is really, you know, valuable to kind of hear this perspective from, you know, what y'all are going through. And then I want to say, you know, over the few months as we get towards an election, that's really going to determine a lot of what, you know, we're all dealing with right now. You know, this committee was not with our voting efforts is gonna become so important over the next few months. And I just really invite each of you here to get more involved with us, if you will. And let's really make sure that we get musicians out there to vote, get registered, and like Congressman was saying a minute ago, to, you know, make sure that we're all ready to do mail-in voting. You know, so we're going to really lean into this program over the next few months, and I would just really invite everyone here to join us in that effort, if you will.
Sure.
I know Kevin's already pretty fired up on some of this stuff, and we want to get all y'all more involved in this effort if we can. So thanks, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and rotate some of y'all out and bring in some other musicians who are waiting backstage. So I'll actually have to pop y'all out of the stream. But again, thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Mochi, thanks everyone too. And let's keep doing this, okay? I think it's really important that we keep this dialogue going.
Agreed.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Great to see everyone.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Pat. And,
I love everybody.
and Zach, thanks for putting this all together. And
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you,
All
guys.
the other stuff on.
Thanks for taking the time to join us. It's great to hear perspectives across the board. So it's really cool.
Yeah, thank you, guys, and we'll see y'all very soon.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Or more.
Thanks, my friends. Okay, and let's see. We're going to go ahead and add in Mr. Madden, Mr. Collins here. We've got Amos and Drew Davis, tradesmen. We've got Doug Leviton, our music commissioner, who's joining us now.
Howdy.
Remove Carolyn. And let's see, we have more come up in here in a moment. And I know a recurring issue today is that my camera froze up, Scott's froze up, and he'll be back in just a moment. But it's great to see all you guys here today. You know, some of you guys I know from the real world, some of y'all I know from songwriting groups. Drew, it's great to see you here. Our fellow soul writers and all that stuff. And, you know, I think let's just kind of get into some of the questions that we wanted to ask you guys today. And I think, you know, let me just kind of get my list up here. You know, some of us are different in that not only do we book shows ourselves, but some of us actually book events for other people. Unlike the Who's Who in Austin, a lot of our money comes from these private shows, right? So I guess how has this affected your business? You know, how has the federal unemployment affected business? And how have you guys been able to pivot in this time? I know Madden's been, you know, dealing directly with this quite a bit, but I'd love to hear from all you guys on the subject right now. So why don't we go around? Yeah, David,
Sure,
can start
sure.
for it.
Yeah, I can jump in. I have been trying to deal directly with some of this through other organizations. I mean, the Austin, Texas Musicians Organization, Pat, you know, Nakia, you guys, Scott, you're doing a great job. And thank you for putting together events like this that can really stream to the public. And I hope that somebody on social media is tuning in and learning a little bit about what it's been like for musicians kind of behind the scenes and to peel that back a little bit. But also I've been doing some work with the Recording Academy. And it is just so crucial, you know, as a gigging musician myself, I just wanted to say a few words about how crucial it is that we fix unemployment compensation for gig workers. This is a section of the economy that is mysterious to many. Part of the challenge there is that some people have been kind of denied their rightful share because many of us have income streams from various, you know, we make part of our income through 1099 work. Many of us also supplement that or make income through W-2s. There are parts of the unemployment benefit system that don't really jive with that when you're trying to combine two of those things. So, you know, the CARES Act was a huge step forward. It provided unemployment benefits to self-employed music creators like us for the first time to the gig economy. And so that's really great that our representatives were able to do that. However, there were some unintended consequences for mixed earners. There's people who have their finances coming through 1099s and W-2s. So we have great people like Lloyd Doggett, Congressman Doggett that you had earlier, who's such a supporter of not just the Austin music industry, but really on a federal level, he's such a supporter of artists. So I want to thank him for that. And I look forward to hearing from everybody on this call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Dave. Anyone else want to comment on that? How have you guys been able to pivot your business right now and during this pandemic. Scott, would you like to go ahead and
Yeah,
talk to us?
sorry, I'm like, bah! No, I just, starting in March, I gigged in Austin weekly to help pay bills. And then I would also tour when I released music. I own and run a recording studio, and I also picked up a job working the door at the Saxon Pub. And all of that was phenomenal. It was great. And I picked up the extra work because I needed it, because even though I gig weekly and all that other stuff, it doesn't cover everything. So I needed some extra work. And then when everything completely stopped, and still has, with safety measures, I can't gig, can't run a studio, can't work door at a music venue. It made it tough. But luckily, with like the Music Cares Act, Saxon Pub helped at first. And then, as you hear a lot, just general hustling, just picking up anything I can. We've gotten by, my girlfriend, my partner, and I, month by month, but it comes with parts of a month where I don't know how the next month's going to happen. And then people kind of say, well, you're an entitled musician or something. What, you're not going to go get another job? What, I'm not going to go take someone else's job where they're also applying and they have more expertise. Plus, it's a pandemic. It's kind of hard to go out and just find a job. So that's kind of where I'm at personally. And I'm not complaining because I love my life and I'm going to make it work. But yeah, the support has just been internal from the music community for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else care to thank you, Scott, for that. And I'm going to bring back in our other Scott. Happy to have you back.
Hey,
we both were having a little bit of a freeze today. Let's hear from Amos and Drew Davis Tradesman. Yeah, would you guys care to comment on that?
Yeah. So I'm Drew Davis. This is Amos Tradesman, Davis Tradesman, and it's long, guys.
Yeah, we didn't hyphen each other's names. We're that's fine.
So I feel like I kind of have a unique perspective in this because I'm an original artist, and I last year I did gigs just shy of 300 gigs, and so I play a ton of gigs with my own stuff all over town, residencies. Usually I would have 2 or 3 residencies a week in addition to other work, and then Amos has his company Moon Tower Entertainment, and we run that together, and we operate only in the private sector with that particular business. So that's kind of just a little background about what we do. Amos is a phenomenal guitar player and doubles in my stuff. And then, of course, all the bands, there's 4 bands that we operate in-house. And then we book hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of solo artists, duos, bands, trios, all kinds of people of all genres for hundreds of private events in Austin and San Antonio and kind of Central Texas. So we've had a very unique impact in our personal household because we both perform and do music full time. So obviously we just watched the faucet turn off on March 15th. But it's been very challenging for us because we help provide livelihood for 60 plus musicians, sound techs, engineers, people who are being completely left out of the conversation. Zach's in our crew. Hey, Zach. And so it's been I know the last conversation y'all were wrapping up talking about kind of mental health. It's been very mentally draining for us. We have this family that we've built and work that was promised, and people that have made decisions in their lives, upgrading an apartment or buying a new car or putting a down payment on a house, knowing that our work, the private work, I pick up last minute solo original stuff all the time, like I'll play tomorrow. But the private work is booked a year in advance, sometimes more. And so all of this work is on the calendar and promised to these people and just taken away overnight when decisions were made assuming that this income would be there. For us, I mean, we just moved to Circle City. We love it, but we bought that house in September knowing that everything was cool. And obviously now it's not. So it's just been really hard to see. I think touching a little on what Scott was saying, but these are careers, and it's not, I know there are plenty of people who do this as a side hustle and who do this for fun. And I think all those people are welcome in this industry and in this field as well. But we work predominantly with career musicians and career performers and career artists who are making 60, 70 grand a year doing their art and gigging. So the unemployment, I can just sing my praises about the Texas Workforce Commission. They have been so helpful. We got connected to Aaron Demerson, and he was just incredible.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
His guys were calling us at 11 at night.
Yeah, like
it was
midnight voicemails.
That guy's a true hero in this.
And
Yeah, he is.
I can't give the name of my secret inside woman, she said, but she's been amazing.
Is it Melissa Chapa?
Nope.
Oh, okay, because Melissa works directly with Demerson.
There's like a special worker who's on my side.
That's amazing.
That was a huge relief for us, just from this impact of we're so used to providing. I mean, these people work for us every week. And so that was they just took a huge load off when they implemented that and when they helped us all get it. Because at first we were like, we don't know if we can access this. But him and his team and my secret agent who are they really helped us, and that took a huge load off. So I'm happy we're having conversations about how to keep it going and trying to
Thank you, Amos and Drew. I think you bring up some really important points here about our other gig workers, about the sound techs and a lot of the other people that are a part of the industry that really are in need of a lot of help right now too. And fortunately, we have two gentlemen in the room who we haven't heard from yet, who can speak directly to some of those from booking and from even just an overall general sense. First I'd like to hear from Doug, as Doug's a music commissioner, and then after that we have the godfather of Red River, Cody Cowan, here. And I think we're going to have a lot of questions for Cody to fill in the blanks on. So Cody will kind of close out our show with us today. But Doug, I'd like to hear from you. Number one, I think as a booker, as someone who's very involved in running an establishment, a club, and then also, you're a music commissioner, and even from the music commission side, I'd like to kind of hear about what all the things are happening on that level to address some of these questions we have.
Sure. Well, before I was a music commissioner and a booker, I'm a musician. Been playing drums in this town since 2009, and then started putting on my own events with my wife under our company's umbrella, Doug Fresh Productions, back in 2014, doing shows at Sahara Lounge once a month, which gave me kind of the experience of booking an event, running from doors open to doors closed, paying out bands, and then also doubling as DJs. We're bringing out our funk and soul disco records to keep the party going. So that's kind of where we started with understanding how to run an event from start to finish. And then back in just a couple of years ago, I started booking for Half Step and then Oscar Blues, and I got those gigs because I was playing at those spaces and realized they needed a little more help. And since I was a musician, I kind of knew what felt good as a player walking into a space, and then hosting events. I kind of knew what to expect from a venue's perspective too. So I was kind of seeing the whole picture. So come March, when the pandemic came down, I lost all my gigs. Both venues shut their doors. Half Step did open for a little bit, just to serve some drinks when they could at 25% occupancy, but they got shut down again. And I talked to management recently, and they said that just doesn't work. They need 100% occupancy to survive. So last April is when I joined the Music Commission for Paige Ellis, District 8. She's a friend of mine, and she was elected as a councilwoman, and so she had some seats open. And actually, my wife is on the Arts Commission as well. So she gave us this opportunity, and I didn't really even know what that entailed, being a commissioner. But I called up Stuart Sullivan, who was one of the only people I knew on the commission at the time. And Stuart told me, if you care about the community, then you need to be on the commission. And so prior to COVID, we were working on the creative space bond, the 12 million for creative space. I was on the working group for that. There's a little more info coming down the pipeline about that. But then once COVID hit, it was, what do we do? No one is making any money anymore, from musicians to venues to the tech community. And it's our livelihood. You know, these are not hobbies. These are our careers, like Drew said. And so it's been really tough. Fortunately, with the CARES Act, there was some money set aside. There was the 1.5 million for musicians specifically. And I think just yesterday it was announced the Creative Workers grant, which will be up to $2,000, coming from a $3.5 million pool specific for creative workers. And if you look at the website that's on the city page, it's pretty broad who can apply. We're talking graphic designers, radio hosts, your lighting, your sound crews, your dancers, pretty much if you're a creative and you've been using that for income over the past, however many years, then you would be able to apply for these $2,000 grants, which opens up Monday.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. I really want to commend you and all the rest of the commissioners, and certainly our ATX Music and Entertainment Division for bringing that aid to our community, to our musicians, and now obviously to our other music community gig workers.
Right.
I know it's not an easy task that you guys are faced with these past few months, and there's been a lot going on. So thank you for that. It's not an easy job. And to that very point, we talk about aid that's come to our musicians, but our music sort of ecosystem is a lot larger than that, right? It takes a lot of different parts of this music community to make it all work. And part of that certainly has been our venues and our entertainment districts that are facing a lot of challenges right now too. And so, to that point, I'd kind of like to talk a little more to Cody about some of those challenges that are happening right now that our venues are facing. Cody, if you will.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me on, Pat. It's always good to see you,
my
brother.
Yeah. I know we talk to each other every day, and we're always kind of behind the scenes doing the work. So it's nice to see you've got your nice kind of Mad Max mullet warrior.
Yeah, it's like my pandemic rat.
I know. Haircut. It's so funny that you and I are wearing suits up to City Hall every day, and I've got my suit on, but I'm like, I haven't had a haircut in months, so I'm just
chilling,
So,
Pat, we know you're wearing shorts.
Right. I do have pants on for the first time in months, but I digress. Cody, please kind of tell us a little more about what's happening regarding venues right now.
Well, I think it's no surprise to all of you who play music or in the music industry that, when you have large square footage spaces like venues do for performances, and you have no income ongoing since March, that folks are in a real pickle right now. I mean, I'm really glad that the city of Austin has supported disaster relief funds for musicians, and I'm glad to see them reopening that one as well as the one that's coming out on Monday. But we have a real challenge as an industry here, because to date, the city of Austin hasn't invested a nickel in the live music industry, right? I mean, we've been working on a lot of efforts, like you see with the Live Music Fund that we got passed that went through last year. The hope with that was to subsidize performances for local musicians to kind of fill out calendar days and keep everyone working through the week. Well, you know, none of that really matters now that shows can't happen, right? Venues were the first to close and will be likely the last to reopen. If I'm going to get into some grim predictions, we may or may not have vaccine or treatments by the end of the year, but we will certainly, folks like us will not have access to those for probably another year to 2 years after that due to supply chain. So we're really looking at a 2 to 3 year delta minimum. Talking to hotel lodgings industries and other larger organizations, you know, they're looking at what the 5-year curve looks like. So when we look at something like the hot tax, you look at hotels that were bringing in 80% plus bookings, went down to 5% and are, you know, probably somewhere around 15 right now from the folks I talked to. I mean, that could seem like some dry economic data, but that should really brace us for what's coming. You know, live music venues largely have only forestalled declaring their permanent closures due to PPP and SBA grants. Those have now are running out, those dollars. Again, there's still no assistance from the city of Austin for the industry that's built this city. We'll see a few other small business grants we'll announce by the end of the month. But we're at war with time right now inside the pandemic, because we would like to be optimistic about what we're dealing with. But as a UT history grad, I would strongly urge people to look at what the Great Depression looked like. Not because I think I have any knowledge of this lasting 10 years, but because the money's running out. Congress isn't going to probably do anything until mid-September. We all have rents to pay, whether we're venues or individuals, and here we are, right? We kind of haven't really seen the hurt yet, even though, you know, some would say that they have and others haven't. So I found myself as sort of the grim reaper of doom tidings. I mean, you know, NEVA is an organization that I'm involved in, has described a probable 90% closures of live music venues nationwide. I talk to those folks several times a week. Everyone's in the same boat as we are here in Austin. So I guess if there's any small joy in it is that we're on the same ship. So we got to work together to get through this. Mm-hmm. But the sad fact is, you know, we're going to need jobs through and after the pandemic. And if all of our small businesses like venues close, if stages close, then, and we haven't supported those from a government perspective, then we're really in for it. And I'm, you know, I'm glad spirits are up, so I don't want to like bring everyone down and be a drag. But, you know, I find, again, talking as another sober person, working on 11 years sober, it doesn't do me a lick of good to keep fooling myself about what's going on, to keep telling my story, this isn't happening, everything's going to be fine. It's not fine, right? And we're all struggling and coping with that as we will. But it's that space, I think, at least for me, being sober about what reality is and then operating from that space, coming up, planning, collaborating with folks like Pat and all of our music industry people locally and nationally. That's where we get results, not, you know, wondering if we can just reopen at 25% or have game day at DKR or reopen schools. All these are fantastical ideas that, though there are some real problems on the ground, are naive in ignoring very basic arithmetic for what we were experiencing. So, you know, I hate to sound harsh, but it's time to move into reality and start operating from that space as a community.
Mm-hmm. Drew.
I would just to speak on that from an events perspective, I completely agree that the city needs to step in because I feel like my whole life until the last 4 or 5 years of it was the original music side where venues were such an important part to me so I could have a stage. now we're so entrenched in the private event side, and so many of those private events it's the tourism industry. So you look at ACL and you look at South by and you think that's Austin, that's people coming. They come all year long, billions and billions and billions of dollars. And why they're coming here is because there's Red River, there's Rainy Street, there's places to go to walk into any bar, even though they're going to have live music programs for their whole event, and they're going to have Franklin's Barbecue and all the best jams and everything at there. That's Austin. They're coming to Austin because everybody in the company wants to experience Austin outside of just the conventions and the conferences. They have their nights off, and they're always, every time I'm playing an event, I used to play these events 2 or 3 times a week. People are asking me, where can we go tonight? Where are we going to go see music? And I'm saying, oh, go check out Cheer Charlie's. Go check out Half Step. It's super cool. Like, check out, these are all my faves, Geraldine's. And if those places aren't here anymore, then those billions of dollars are not going to come to Austin anymore. I mean, it is hot as hell, as we have seen recently. And the city is set up cool, but with all the tech and everything taking over, if the venues are gone, we are going to lose billions and billions and billions of dollars of tourism industry that comes to us all year long. Outside of Southby, outside of ACL, that's their own microcosms, tiny part of the tourism industry. And the city has to step in and save these places because we're not going to be a destination.
Yeah, I think to add to that, ultimately what I foresee is whether you're on the original side, you're on the event side, you're on the hospitality side or entertainment, whatever aspect, this thing is eroding Austin's identity. If the venues aren't there, if there's no place to play, if there's nowhere to experience Austin, then no one's coming here.
Yeah.
It's just what it is.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, that's one of the features of the Red River Cultural District. We have live music venues, we have restaurants, we have bars, we have hotels. You got the convention center on one end of Red River, then you have the stadium on the north side. I mean, everything is inextricably connected.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. In a really happy accidental way, which then we started calling ourselves the live music capital of the world. Right. Yeah. And your point about South by Southwest, you know, as someone born and raised here and who's worked South by Southwest for over 20 years and maybe only gone to one in my recent personal career history, I can tell you it's a full-time love to hate scenario locally, but the reality is our music ecosystem wouldn't be here if it weren't for South by Southwest, and we don't know if South by Southwest is ever going to happen again, quite frankly. I mean, it will not be happening in 2021. That's beyond the pale, and they are in the similar boat that they don't have any, as big as they seem larger than life, but as big as they seem or as big as they are not immune to this as well. For venues, having worked in venues for 20 years, I can tell you 2 things. One, that revenue for venues and for many other small businesses is anywhere between 10 to more than 50% of annual income comes from that cultural tourism moment. I mean, that's like, the dependence level can't be exaggerated, and we've already lost that for 1 year. On a personal level, it was bartending South by Southwest that allowed me to put myself through college. And I had one job, 10, 15, 20 years ago and could work part-time. And I don't know anyone in industry, whether you're working in venues or restaurants or otherwise, that isn't hustling several jobs and doing everything that they can just to make like bare minimum. So I guess my point is, we're not facing one economic disaster. We're coming from the economic disaster of affordability, that rapid growth that we doubled population in 10 years. And all of us know what that felt like because the pay in our pockets wasn't any bigger, but rent sure was a challenge. And here we are now with the collapse of the economy. So we have an already fragile, tenuous economic ecosystem here in Austin that's really been shot in the heart, right? Now that music and cultural tourism is offline.
Yeah. I got 2 questions.
Pat.
Sure.
Sorry, Dave, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Scott.
Oh, okay. Drew and Amos, you guys, I mean, you all have been kind of the canaries in the coal mines a little bit because you've been doing, a few shows like sporadically, having events and doing stuff. Obviously, it's not as much as it was before, but I mean, you all, like you said, you employ a lot of people. I have been one of those people that you've employed. I have totally been in a position where I'm like, oh my God, where's this, need this extra, a couple $100 or whatever. And, Amos will send me an email and it's like, oh my God, yes, please, anything. So, I mean, like, how is it, or what is it that you all have been doing during this time that maybe, I mean, in some glimmer of spark of hope or something we could maybe practice or something? Or am I just being too optimistic about that?
Tough question.
You want me to speak or you want
I'll try it and you can help me.
I'll help you. It's fragile.
It's really fragile. What we found immediately was, because there's probably 40-50% of what we do are weddings, and they kind of fall into their own category as people want to get married. It's a rite of passage. I don't foresee that going away. Obviously, anything fundraisers, corporate events, galas, private parties are completely gone. There's none. No company. The companies are going to face major liability issues. Obviously, a lot of it's driven by destination, so no one's traveling right now. I think for us, what we found is all of our clients individually, whether they're a couple getting married or a corporate Apple, everybody's in a very unique situation. And so depending on almost an incalculable number of variables, whether it's size or location or what the theme is, even, everything is on a case-by-case basis. So we're having to navigate every single event one at a time, and really try to take care of our personnel that, like Drew said, we're counting on this revenue, and balance out against being fair and being human and really listening to our clients and trying to find middle ground. And the first several weeks of when this hit and shut down, we had people, they've been planning their events for a year or more, and then they can't get married, they can't have their celebration, they can't have their party. And so it's been, I do think that the events that we have done, we've taken certain precautions. The biggest one is obviously making sure that all of our guys are healthy and comfortable doing, being around people.
Yep.
Some people wear masks, some don't, guest wise. All of our guys that can perform in a mask do. We make sure that our guys basically stay in the green room. We've done probably 9 or 10.
I've done like 12.
Yeah, weddings since we've come out of quarantine. No one's gotten sick. Everybody's been good, but we're really having to do a lot of due diligence. We're having to rethink liability. We're having to kind of rebalance that out with, again, just, we're good at playing music and giving people a good experience. We're not trained crisis interventionists.
Yeah, here's to me the biggest difference between a private event and a public event, which is why I feel like the venues and the bars are very fragile in particular. So when you have a public event, you have no control over who is coming. You don't know where they've been. Have they been overseas? Were they sick this morning? You don't know anything. And the accountability publicly is a lot different than people who know, like, Grandma Jane's coming to the wedding tonight. Everybody, if you're sneezing, like, do not hurt Grandma Jane. So there's a totally different level of accountability and responsibility that you're dealing with from private events and public events. So for us, I've played a few public shows, mostly outside, mostly small at houses. I've been at Geraldine's twice. And I felt very safe in those environments, very distanced. I mean, it looks almost complete. Geraldine's, it's like half of the tables are gone. And they're doing what they can. And I want to support them too. They're great. But for the private events, the biggest distinction to me is that the people who are in charge, which is the client, so whether it's a birthday party, the person booking us, the bride and groom, whoever it is, they have complete control over who's attending. And so anybody who's been traveling, cousin Rebecca went to Italy, sorry, you're not going to make this one. So they have control over everything. And I think because it's such a close-knit, it's friends and family, everybody feels more of a personal responsibility to each other to show up safe, to show up healthy, to show up if they haven't been going other places. So I felt very comfortable at the private events. And the same thing is going, I mean, I know Zach plays with us. We've had some people sub out. They're like, I can't tell if it's my allergies, or we're like, nope, sorry, see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we feel more comfortable in the private event spaces because we do feel like there is that greater sense of accountability than the public event spaces, where if you're a venue, you have no idea who's coming in. You have no idea how those people are feeling.
Or control over that.
You have no control. It's easy. What are you going to do? Like, get out of here. So it's much trickier for them. And that's why I feel very deeply for our public event spaces, because they just need help. They need help.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, Cody, and I'll say this one thing, and then I'll let you answer, or maybe not answer, and then I'll turn it over to you guys and stuff, because I love you guys, and thank you so much for being here. So in ATX Fair Pay, it's a committee that we're working with, trying to get like fair pay and for players and venues and whatnot, right? So unbeknownst to them, and I haven't told them this yet, I haven't said anything, but I actually pulled a FOIA request for like I think it was sales, like drink sales and stuff, for basically every single venue in Austin, Texas. And some of those venues, like looking at I mean, I'm not gonna I'm not naming names or any of that stuff or whatever, but it's like, I mean, it's very surprising that they've been open anyway. And this kind of speaks to a problem that's kind of been happening for a while now. Like there's been this saying around COVID that like it's kind of just exacerbated every single problem that we've been having. And to kind of look at some of those numbers and everything, and then to see, like, I think it was the Statesman or the Chronicle, I can't remember which one, that put out a report saying that venues were going to shut down if they didn't get any help by Halloween. I mean, I know that you're kind of like, the sort of the Grim Reaper here or whatnot, but like, I mean, is that a correct assessment? I mean, what is like the viability of, these venues? I know we talked about it a little bit, but what is the viability of some of these venues in Austin, given everything that's been here?
Yeah, so I'd like to qualify that I'm not an economist.
Right.
First. But I do study economics and history and sociology, and I've been part of the music economy and economic impact discussion through my career. And what we do have is a plethora of data right now. We have data in Austin, we have data in North America, we have data worldwide on what the music ecosystem has looked like. Centers have rapidly grown over the past 10 years, right? Like Austin's growth isn't unique to Austin. This is happening in most places, right? Jobs are in cities. What are you going to do? Lifestyle and quality of life is in cities from many's perspective. So in Austin, we have a white paper. We have all sorts of economic impact data. We did a ULI TAP report in 2017 in Red River, looking at just the fragility of that. I mean, if we take a step back into affordability, live music venues have historically always popped up in economically distressed areas, right? Like Red River was in a floodplain. It was a bunch of old furniture spaces, auto body garages, and empty distressed warehouses. So venues popped up there because of that, right? It's like low cost, few noise complaints. It's just the model fit it. Because it's an expensive model, right? I think anyone in events can understand that you have fixed and cost scales, but the larger event you throw, the more your costs scale with that, right? To your point, like rent is usually over 25% of your monthly operating budget, and so is labor. Cost of goods, if you're doing great, is 20-25%. I mean, there's like 75% of your income before you're talking about insurance and a whole slew of other things. So we know what was happening with venues before this. Since COVID, we've got a hobby stool study that shows the depth of impact and identifies music venues as the most deeply impacted in Austin. We also have a Downtown Austin Alliance member survey that corroborates that, and really shows that downtown is set to lose 50% plus of its businesses. Again, we don't need to be an economist. The data is there. And if you've been inside the business plan, you know that it's a 90% cost model. which means, everything looks like glitz and glamour from the outside, but then when you dip into what the business plans are, if you're great, you're taking in like 2 to 5% net annually, certainly for downtown venues. Having been a former GM of Mohawk for the past decade, I can tell you what got me into the role that I'm in now is understanding that it was 1 step forward, 2 steps back. It was like totally unsustainable, no matter how great you were at business. And now we're hitting that wall that if the current survey estimate is that we're going to lose up to 90% of venues by Halloween. Those 10% aren't the men and women who have great business plans. They're the folks who have deep pockets, right? Because everyone has already spent all of their savings as a business. They've spent PPP. They're spending into their loans. They're trying to acquire other investors or other loans just to keep the show up. They're waiting on grants, these sorts of things. But folks who are going to survive are ones that have deep pockets, quite frankly. And I think this is the terrifying thing, because if you look at our market relative to the rest of the country, we're like the only market that doesn't have a large share of like Live Nation owned venues and other like big box kind of just like cookie cutter experiences. We're like 99% DIY art culture spaces. You don't find that like anywhere else. It's really cool. But it also means the people owning and operating these spaces are all largely working class, middle class folks who have invested their entire lives in it. There's no plan B, right? So here we are. This is what's always been the scary proposition as well. I grew up here. There's always going to be another Liberty Lunch goes, another venue pops up. There was Raoul's, Alamo headquarters, et cetera. It's like, yeah, but in 2003, I was paying $150 in rent as an individual, right? Marinate on that. Like, right? I was bartending 3 nights a week at Emo's, and it was just like gangbusters for college and like whiskey, Mm-hmm. Here we are today. Can you imagine having your rent being $150 to $300 a month? Wages have not grown. And to your point about wages, I come from an AFL-CIO family union background. I mean, these concerns, I think, are excellent to be bringing up now, because we've been on a runaway train in terms of current phase capitalism for at least 40 years. Some would say since the early 70s. And like, we have gone off the track. It's just not sustainable for the majority of people. Like, how many more Uber gigs can you pick up to support your main job? It's unbelievable. But we have a real opportunity, I think, inside of this disaster and inside of the distress to self-reflect individually and culturally in business and as a nation, and go, does this work? Does this work for us? And then start taking steps to solve those things that we take umbrage with, including labor. I mean, listen, the only model that functioned was the model we had in 2019 for paying musicians. And who the hell wants to go back to that? I mean, it's just like, there's no path forward. But we do know that whatever is going to happen over the next 2 to 5 years, I mean, we're going to have a surplus of labor and a scarcity of jobs. It's like just point blank. So that's going to create some real problems for equity unless we start getting really serious about it, and not just on a local level. I'm talking about like looking at what labor laws look like nationally, the Wagner Act, overturning, right to work states like we have here in Texas. There's no protections. I mean, we have a tall order of work ahead of us. And I'd really encourage everyone to start self-educating about what the environment around us looks like. Yeah. Because I feel like, in part, as a society, we're really challenged right now because we've had the luxury, even for those of us who have had a hard time scraping by, the luxury of not looking at what it all means. Mm-hmm. And we can't afford to do that right now. As I think, Black Lives Matter has really demonstrated to us, the nail is in the coffin, and the coffin was the way we used to live and the way we used to act. It's time to transform. It's time to move forward. So I'm really excited about those opportunities going in the future. I'm less excited for myself and everyone else about what that means for our music and industry and our way of life, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to, real quick give a shout out to Cody and the RRCD for doing what they've done to help out local musicians and people working. I actually have this stool right next to my desk.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Those guys,
Yeah.
they're sending out ATP gift cards to people. And,
Thank you. Sorry.
yeah, it's just really cool. And it's cool to see how quickly you guys were able to do that. And you've done 2 rounds, and the city's barely gotten off 1 round of assistance. And so just huge shout out to you guys for that. And then one more question for you, just really quickly. Can you share some info on how people can support independent venues locally and nationally? I know there's NEVA and Save Our Stages. Can you just share that info, and maybe we can share it in the comments so people can sign up and do what we can do from our homes? And if people can donate, that's great too. Any info you can get out on that would be appreciated.
Yeah. So what can people do to help? Right. I think we're all feeling the pressure of needing to do something. What do we do now? Like, I've been talking about like a long-term plan, but what do we do now? Certainly people can keep shopping locally. I mean, you've got to put your money where your heart is. And that means spending it into those restaurants that are local, because we're going to lose them too. Like, this isn't just a music venue thing. And also, whatever business model venues are managing right now, whether it's streaming or whether it's merchandise or whether it's packaged to go, I mean, if you have the means, you've got to put the money in on that level. Is it going to save the business? It won't. But that's all we can do as consumers and as individuals. Can also support the legislation that NEVA has helped bring forward, Save Our Stages and the Restart Act. We've got, those are being brought forward by Senators Cornyn and Klobuchar. So we got bipartisan support of that. But if you're paying attention to what's happening at Congress, I mean, it's shameful, as our friend Doggett brought up. We don't know what's going to happen with disaster relief. We don't know if the budget is going to make by the end of next month at this point. That's what I'm hearing. I mean, it's pathetic. It's pathetic, and there should be no tolerance of this, because, again, and thank you for the shout out for banding together. Banding together helps support music, service, and hospitality industry workers who are out of work by providing access to groceries. Right? It's like people are having a hard time paying rent and eating right now. Like, this was happening before COVID, and now it's just like full stop is what's going on. There's absolutely no excuse for not getting the job done for these folks who aren't going to see the pain from this at all, as senators and Congress members. So, I don't have any patience for that. People need to work hard on that level. I don't know as individuals what we can do to push that forward. I doubt there's very much other than increasing pressure to get results from them and in that timeline that we need them to. I'm skeptical about online petitions, all these sorts of things. So I encourage folks, though, to continue having one-to-one conversations like we were having here earlier with Mr. Doggett, and just keep the pressure and pain up in terms of telling real stories. I mean, this is so big, we don't need to make anything up. We don't need to be hyperbolic. This is happening. So please support those efforts. And if we get disaster relief in Austin, this is when I'll need all of y'all's help. If we get disaster relief, we have got to have a dedicated fund for live music venues.
Yeah.
We, as Pat could tell you, we busted our asses on that from March up until when all of it was solidified by the end of June, early July. And here we are, the live music capital of the world, and no money for the venues that help employ musicians. Like, where are y'all going to work a year, 2 years, 3 years from now? Like, let's just put the math together. So please support and keep pressure with our council members and city staff. We've got to have that fund. We unfortunately have no money for it currently. What's done is done. But if we have disaster relief, we need to hold them to that promise, and we need to make sure that comes through so that we have some hope of retaining some of the good while we're rebuilding the rest later on.
Yeah. And Cody, I have a quick, I just want to say to you, we've been in this work together for a while in the trenches, and you're my brother, and I love you so much. And I just want to thank you for everything you're doing. I know it's a it's a tough road. And you brought up something, Scott was mentioning the Fair Pay Committee that we're working on. And I know I mentioned this to you last week about, kind of what we're looking at. And you had mentioned some of the same things you brought up today about, doing a little more research, I think, about, labor efforts in the past and really informing the direction that we go in. I would ask you today, since you really don't have much on your plate right now, it seems, I'm totally kidding. Over these next months, as we start to really define that work, I would love to partner with you a little more and pick your brain about some of those efforts and some of the direction we go with this thing. So that's just a personal ask from me to you, and I know our Fair Pay Committee would be really thrilled to engage with you a little more in that way.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help. Again, my grandfather, Billy Cowan, he was a switchman on trains in North Texas, and then ended up becoming a lobbyist for the United Transportation Union and the VP for the UTU at AFL-CIO. So, some kids went to Disneyland. I went to the site of the Ludlow Massacre in Colorado and all the sites of famous strikes and protests. So, I absolutely love the topic. It's near and dear to my heart. But in our discussions, I would temper the efforts that y'all are making now. Do the research, do the homework, talk to folks at AFL-CIO, understand what this means, and also be prepared for what the market is going to look like going forward. Because I think as a community, we need to understand that we're all in the same socioeconomic bracket. We're all going to be coming from the same point of pain, and that we're going to need to support one another. Right now, what I see in Austin and other places is that we've hit the piece of hard times to where the community is fractured and everyone's pointing the finger, and it's musicians against venues and venues against these other people, and then this other group against. It's like all you have to do is open up Facebook and you'll see it happening, right? You go to a music commission meeting, you'll see it happening. That's fine, and that's human nature to feel backed into a corner and want to stand up for your own, as you define it. But that shit is not going to hack it in the coming months and in the coming year for sure. So I hope everyone gets that out of their system, because we're really going to have to tighten our belts and get ready to get gritty, especially those of us who didn't have the benefit of having grandparents who survived the Depression and World War II. Those stories are just ringing in my ears right now. And I'm so blessed to have had them for them. Yeah. Because we don't know what this is yet, but it's not a world that I grew up in and that I've lived in. It's not a world that my parents grew up in, and not a world that many of our children lived in. So we're living in a historic moment in time.
Yeah.
And the great thing about this is that crisis is the point of transformation, right? It's the crossroads, and we can decide where we go from this. We can decide who we are and how we define ourselves to be by what we do in these hard moments. So I'm excited about that, because I think there's so much good that can be done. And I hope y'all are invested in that as well.
Definitely. That's why we're here. And I want to reiterate a point you made. If you guys want to get involved, if anyone, musically, we still have 14 viewers. We've been on over 2 hours and we still have so many viewers. But if you guys want to get involved, if you want to learn more about what's going on, show up to these music commission meetings. These are happening every 2 weeks right now. And guys like Doug here and the rest of our wonderful commissioners are working their asses off right now on all these different committees to really push the ball forward. So I would encourage you guys to find out when meeting times are and show up and speak up. I know we had a question a minute ago from Madden, and then we can probably start wrapping up here in a moment. But Dave, did you have something you wanted to ask before we all go here?
Well, I just wanted to share, as Cody was giving us that unvarnished dose of reality that's so important to hear, and speaking about generations past, I was thinking about the young people, the next generation of musicians. And I particularly feel for them, the teenagers and the 20-somethings who are being denied their birthright of a bunch of live music venues, shitty clubs and slightly less shitty clubs, and even open mics where they'd be able to meet the rest of their generation and develop the relationships that would last them for the rest of their life. Like this Armageddon that we're experiencing or about to experience even deeper is happening to me and to some of us at a point in my career where I've already done a lot of that important work, that networking and building the professional relationships that I can now depend on. I do arranging and orchestration and composition work for larger ensembles that have a budget, and I'm still getting those gigs and still producing those things. But I wouldn't be getting them had it not been for all the networking that I was able to do earlier in my career. So it's good that we're communicating and organizing, and I hope that we're able to encourage others to support this work. So as Cody was saying, the Save Our Stages Act, and there's kind of an alphabet soup developing in Congress right now of various acts that people can support. But the HITS Act, which would give tax incentives for musicians to record records, and the Mixed Earner Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Act. It's a long one, but it makes it easier for creative types who might both have income coming in from 1099s and W-2s to get all of the assistance that they deserve. So, I have hope that we can educate the public and each other about supporting all these things and at least give us a fighting chance.
And I believe Amos and Drew had one more comment to make as well.
Yeah, I think just kind of echoing some of the things that Cody was saying. I think it's important that everybody, I know people are probably all watching this from Facebook, so not to knock Facebook, but get off Facebook. After this is over, of course, then sign off, because we're all coming from different places. And if the pandemic has really, I think, showed me that we're all connected, but we're also super divided. And it's become a lot of, well, this is important to me, so this is what's important. And just having compassion and understanding that everybody is coming from a completely different place, and they're doing things you just got to assume 99% of the time they're doing things because there's a reason they need to, or they're for their mental health or their emotional health, whether it's I'm not going anywhere because I'm terrified of the pandemic and I don't feel safe in clubs. That's completely respectable. And then people who are saying I'm terrified, I can't eat and I can't pay my gas bill, and so I'm going to go play this club that's open. So I just hope that everybody moving forward, there's just so much good discussion today, but that everybody can just kind of see each other for where they're at. You don't have to meet them where they're at, but just understand that there's so much going on. There's so many layers of safety and politics and then livelihoods and keeping the lights on. And some of us are making choices that maybe we don't want to make, but everybody's got their reason and they've got their intention, and we all respect each other. And it's such a loving community. I've been here for 8 years and I love this community of musicians. So I just hope that people can kind of tune out the media and then really support each other, knowing that some venues, like, they're open because they have to be open. Like, they won't survive if they aren't open. So I just hope that we can be nicer to each other.
I think this is a great representation of how diverse the music industry is. Like this group of people, what are we, 8 people? There's so many unique perspectives here, and we're all experiencing a lot of similar things and a lot of things that other people aren't experiencing. So it's helpful for me, and hopefully people watching and people will watch back to hear, a perspective that you can relate to. And then also maybe one that you have no idea, like somebody like Doug that's doing a lot of booking, or Cody that's overseeing a bunch of venues. It's really important to zoom out and look at those, and then zoom in on someone else's life and what they're dealing with, and how can you contribute to that. And so I think that that's a great point, Drew, and thank you guys for joining in on this. It's been really great to hear from you guys, and I hope that we can all continue to work together and lift each other up and rely on each other, even if it's something that doesn't directly benefit me. If it's going to help you and it's something that takes no skin off of my back to do, I will gladly do it. So let's get that information out there. Let's support, independent venues. I think, like Cody said, we're very unique in that we're a city that's not a big Live Nation venue city, which is great. But right now it's actually tougher because Live Nation, while they're hurting, they're keeping their doors open on a lot of stuff, and we aren't, and we're fighting, and all these independent venues are fighting. So let's keep fighting with them, and let's keep that unique, and let's keep that culture of Austin here as much as we can, you know, and be real with it. Like Cody's saying, it's tough. It's going to be bad for a while. Let's accept that. Let's not, you know, shine it up and act like it's not. Let's accept it. Let's work on it, and let's keep trucking on it and do what we can to help each other out. Because, you know, while we may be some people in the private sector, some people in the bar sector, you know, whatever, we're all in the same scene. We're all working on the same goal. We're bringing music to people, and that's what we all love, you know, whether we're performing or booking or running a venue. That's at the end of the day, that's what we really care about. So we're all in the same team, even though we're fighting different fights day to day. And it's just really cool to hear from you guys and see it like right in my face. So thanks again.
Thank you, Zach. And before Mr. Strickland takes us out with some closing remarks from the ATXM Votes perspective on everything that we've talked about today, I just want to check in one more time and get some closing remarks from Scott Collins and then from Doug Levitin as well. Scott, if you will.
Yes, sir. I learned a lot today. Thank y'all so much. It feels better to have that validation that we're all in the same place. And I just echo everything y'all were saying, and really look it up, find the acts, support the acts. You have nothing but time. So jump on all the stuff that was said here today, find the links, and follow atxmusicians.org. A lot of that'll be there. And yeah, just now's the time to get on it and really walk the walk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Scott. Doug, any closing comments for us?
Yeah, everybody needs to be showing up to music commission meetings, chiming in when they can. It's where a lot of decisions and ideas get tossed around at the city level. Contact your council members, get to know them on a first name basis. It's really important because they're the ones that do make the final decisions a lot of times. Big thanks to Cody for all your knowledge, man. I know you've been putting a lot of hard work in, especially the past 4 or 5 months. I just want to say, there are those cities that were music towns like Memphis and Detroit, and they lost their music. So I would hate that to be the case for Austin. So we'll just have to keep putting in the hard work to make sure that that's not the case.
Yeah, thank you. Scott, you want to take us home?
Yeah, and guys, I just want to thank you all so very much. This has been a day of a lot of information overload. I've got tons of notes here. I will say this: we are facing some of the most trying times in our lifetimes. When I hear my dad or my mom say that I've never seen anything like this before, that makes me worried. That makes me very, very scared. And it makes me hopeful as well. There are 168,000 people that have died from COVID-19. There are 18 million people still out of work. A lot of us want to go back to work, but we can't. We can't do that because we can't gather. We can't work in a place where people gather. We make money when people gather. And we cannot make that money because people aren't gathering because of science. I think that there is a path forward with this. I think there is a path to safely do shows. But that is a very careful case-by-case basis, just like Drew and Amos were saying. What we have to do is we have to get beyond the political fallout of what is happening right now and start banding together and working together and actually commit to getting COVID-19 behind us. I think if we can do that, then everything else is going to get a lot better. But until we can all just, be together and have one unified message on what we're dealing with, this is only going to get worse, and it's already going to get worse. So that is what I will say. Thank you all very much for being here. I greatly appreciate it, from our All-Stars panel, which they were touring around the country, to the entrepreneurs and the people right here on the ground with us and here locally here in Austin. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. It means the world to me. I'm actually a little bit emotional just like looking at the familiar faces, not being able to see you like in person. But thank you all so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank
Truly. Thanks, everyone. I love you guys.
Thanks.
Great to be here, guys.
Thank you.
Let's keep doing this work. I think, it's really powerful when we all come together in this way and make things happen. We've got to continue to speak up and show up, and that is why we are here. So, we're always here to work with you guys, and thank you. And we'll be back, I think, very soon. We have a lot of work to do in these next few months and leading into this next election. So let's keep doing these forums. Let's keep getting together. Let's keep talking. And I will see you guys all here very soon.
Thanks, y'all.
All right. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.
Love you.